Model, and the third is part of one of the most exciting Irish bands of the moment. Let's welcome Adam Clayton, Alison Canavan and Ned Arkins, ladies and gentlemen.
You stumble in my footsteps. Keep the same appointments I kept. You try walking in my shoes. You try walking in my shoes.
Come on, join us. You're welcome.
Thank you.
We were going to ask you to river dance on, but we thought, just in your own time, at your own pace.
What a great way to start the show. It's
exciting,
amazing.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It still has a resonance, doesn't it?
It just makes me so patriotic. I remember being in New York at the time, you just feel, oh, I love being Irish.
It still has that effect, I think. Walk in my shoes?
Well, basically, Walk in My Shoes is St. Patrick's Mental Hospital's fundraising campaign, and it's an amazing campaign because we really are at crisis level in Ireland at the moment, and we talk about it all the time, and we say, you know, the suicide rates are really high, but we really are at crisis level.
Okay.
And basically this campaign is to fund a helpline which is open tonight till midnight, and they have it manned, extra manned tonight, for anyone who needs it. But it's also for information. Like, the most important part of this is support and information. We all know the waiting lists are horrendously long in Ireland, which makes people reluctant to look for information. But we're really urging people through this campaign to go and ask for help. Get your GP to refer you. You will be assessed free of charge. So basically, they turn nobody away.
Okay, and how did you get roped into this particular campaign?
I got roped into it not long after I was on with you the last time.
Right.
Talking about my postnatal depression that I suffered after James.
So somebody saw that, obviously, and
they did, indeed. And they basically asked me would I like to get involved. And one of the main reasons I got involved was I started suffering from mental health issues in my late teens, and I didn't know what it was. And basically, I thought, you know something, if I knew what it was then, I probably wouldn't have suffered so bad later on. So early intervention is key in recognising signs and symptoms and getting the necessary help.
Okay, so Adam, why did you get involved in such a campaign?
Well, my mother was involved in St. Pat's about 15 years ago, and she passed away recently. And somebody from St. Pat's said, you know, would you be interested in getting involved? And when I heard the statistics, that it mainly affects young men, and in Ireland, you know, it's the young men between 14 and 24, very high suicide rates. That's the rock audience, that's the people we connect with. I'm kind of lucky, I'm in a job where I meet a lot of young people, and it just seemed to make sense to get involved.
Sure, and what sort of things are you doing vis-a-vis St. Pat's?
Well, the people at St. Pat's are amazing. I mean, I give them a small amount of my time, and they arrange all this stuff for us to do, and I think the message gets out there. Okay, so you would go to St. Pat's, you'd address users and that kind of thing, and talk about your own experience in life. As often as I can.
As often as you can. Okay. The thread, I suppose, that binds the three of you together is your experiences with depression. And Ned, I'll bring you in here, if I may, because you had an experience of depression growing up, and can you remember?
Yeah, I mean, sure. My father was diagnosed as a bipolar at the age of 34.
Yeah.
So I came into the world soon after.
Yes.
So it's been something in my family for as long as I can remember. And to be honest, it was always something I associated with adults, you know?
Yeah.
People my age and younger don't deal with that stuff, you know? We're too busy living life. So when the charity Walk in My Shoes approached us and told us the statistic about 75% of mental health begins before the age of 24.
Yeah.
To be honest, it was really heartbreaking for me and the rest of the lads. It blew our mind to think that there's, you know, kids out there, essentially our age, that are going through these things that I see my father go through. So
well, I suppose in your own circumstances, you had that thing that a lot of people watching tonight have, which is living with somebody who has an issue. In your case, it was your dad.
Yeah.
And that can't have been particularly easy.
No, it wasn't, to be honest. It is hard at times. Like, my father always, he talks about bipolar. It's, you know, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Okay.
And
for you as the son in the house, what was that like?
Well, I was one of two sons. Probably not the favourite son, to be honest. But there you go. But it was hard at times, but like I said, when times were good, they were really good. When they were bad, you know, it wasn't easy. But
okay, but and again, talking about it is what we're doing tonight to try and make it, I suppose, normalise it in many respects. When we spoke the last time, Alison, you referred to it a second ago, but it was about postnatal depression. And again, remind us what we were talking about then for people who didn't see that.
Well, basically with me, I suffered quite bad postnatal depression, but having recovered from it, and looking back on kind of my career, I probably had been suffering from depression for years, but my career enabled me to run from it.
Okay.
So I was kind of fortunate and unfortunate in a lot of ways that if I was unhappy in New York, I went to Miami. If I was unhappy in LA, I just kind of went somewhere else. And basically what you're doing is running from yourself. And with depression, you can't run from yourself because it will always catch up with you. Mm-hmm. And when I had James, it caught up with me. And I went through a lot
Because you had to stop.
Well, I mean, what was I supposed to do? I had someone else to look after.
Yeah.
I had a child who was relying on me. So basically at that stage, I had to deal with my problems. And I went through a lot of anger and, you know, a lot of selfish emotions, I suppose, to begin with. But at the end of the day, I ultimately just wanted to get better.
Yeah.
And what was getting better, it was really interesting to me, my journey of recovery, because I think suffering from mental health, I will always be in a journey of recovery. Like, I always have to keep myself well, you know, because I think...
So it's mental maintenance as much as
Well, I
anything
think
else.
it is. I think everyone has their own formula of what keeps them healthy. Like right now I'm jogging and, you know, sometimes I do meditation. I was in counselling for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. But I think as our life changes and we grow, what we need changes as well. And I just am always aware if I feel myself slipping or if I feel myself getting sad, because staying well is a lot easier than getting sick and pulling yourself back from that place again. Okay. So there's always a little bit of wariness and nerves there. And, you know, if I feel sad for a period of time, I always notice my family saying to each other, "How's Alison? Is she doing okay?" And I'm like, "I'm over here, guys. Yeah, you can talk to me, you know." But on a serious note, like, it is really, really important to be aware of your own mental health. Sure. That's the most important thing. Because it's one thing people telling you, but you have to realise it for yourself and get yourself help.
So what about you, Adam? You've talked about the devil inside. Who is your devil inside? What does he do?
Well, you know, I think I have a history of getting into trouble in Ireland. I think the worst morning of my life was when I woke up to newspaper headlines of U2 star drags guard of 45 feet. And it was like, oh, that was me. That was what I did. And
had you done that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and
I had unfortunately done
The
that.
papers were true for once?
They were, yes, they weren't making it up.
What had been going on in your life that got you to that point?
Well, you know, I think from a teenager on, I always had a low-level depression, and I found that music kind of relieved that, and I think that's why I went into music. And like Alison was saying, when your career starts to take off, there's always a distraction, there's always something else to do, some other place to go. And I found that when I was working, when I was on tour, I was fine. But it was when I got home after the tour, I didn't know what to do. And my drinking increased and increased and increased. And because I kept being successful, it was covered up and taken care of. And I'm in a band with 3 great guys who, you know, they put up with me. And eventually...
Were you difficult to put up with, Adam?
I think so. You know, I think anyone that is a little bit out of control and is drinking too much is not really in touch with what's going on around them.
So would they have sat you down and said, "Come on, get your act together"? Or were you beyond communication in that regard?
No, eventually it was said to me a couple of times, and I was lucky enough to take the hint, and I think I've said this before. You know, I missed a show in Australia.
In '93, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that for me was the end of my world, because the only thing I really wanted to do was be in a band and you know, write great songs and perform to packed houses, and I knew I was going to lose it if I didn't make a decision.
Why did you miss the show in 1993?
I'd done that thing of I'd been controlling my drinking for 3 or 4 months, and I thought, I'll just have one. And then I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But I missed the show.
And a roadie stood in for you?
That's correct, yeah.
And was it the next day, the next week, the next month that you were confronted then and told, "This is bad news, Adam"?
You know, I was sort of told that it was holding me back, it was stopping me develop as a musician, and nothing needed to be said at that stage.
Okay,
I kind of knew.
And was it the other 3 in the band? Was it one of the band, or was it somebody outside the band that sat you down?
It was definitely the guys in the band.
Okay, and that made you turn around. So did you have a... You know, I always wonder about the rock and roll lifestyle that you've led and the band that you've been in. Do you think that it was unhelpful to your depression, or it was just hit it? Is that what you're saying? Do you know, or were you predestined to have depression, if you understand what I mean?
Well, I mean, In my case, I don't think depression was such a big issue, other than it led to the drinking, and the drinking kind of increased the depression. But I think success masked it, because I could get away with it for longer. And I could minimize it to myself. Yeah. But I saw the guys in the band who were the same age as me having much more productive lives than me.
They were settling down, families, everything going on with that. And you were watching those three guys. This is what you weren't pursuing the same road, so to speak. So what were you thinking?
I was thinking I was having a great time.
So what's wrong? Where did it all go wrong? Then do you think that the George Best thing?
You know, I had a string of kind of failed relationships. I had a string of excuses for why my life wasn't going well. I had a string of excuses to explain why I wasn't as good a musician as I aspired to be. Yeah. And I just got sick of that. I got sick of it.
And you decided to confront it, obviously.
Yeah.
And where do you go when you're in a band like you're in, with the profile like you have, and an illness that you're happy to admit to having to deal with? Where does someone like you go?
Well, actually, I went to Eric Clapton.
Well, we can't all do that. but he had his own wars to fight, obviously. Yeah. But you went to Eric Clapton. What did he say to you?
I was very lucky. Somebody gave me his number.
Okay.
And he said, well, there's only one thing you can do, and that's go to rehab. And he told me a place to go to that he recommended was a good place. And I said, well, if he's telling me to go do that, that's what I'm going to do. And that was when I started to listen to what other people said to me, instead of doing the exact opposite of what people said to me. Okay,
and then you're on the right road. Ned, Adam mentioned that, you know, the age profile of the people who are suffering from depression, that they were the rock and roll fans as well as everyone else, but that's why he's getting involved. And you're kind of a similar boat with the ORB, the original Rude Boys.
I wouldn't say we're as big as you two, not just yet anyway.
But you know what?
Today.
A boy can dream. And you know, you never know. But the point is that your fan base are important to you. Do they contact you about things like this? Would that be happening?
Yeah, it's pretty sad that I suppose they turn towards a band that air music connects to them, but they to me we're sort of strangers to them. That there's these young fans out there, and to be honest, some of them email us, you know, some pretty graphic stuff and get into detail about the lives that they're going through, and it can be pretty sad.
What sort of things are they going? Give us an idea.
It's all a lot of it is, you know, some of them are feeling down and want to end their lives. Yeah. And some of them are going into detail about. There was one particular case of a young girl whose father was, you know, she got into a lot of detail about her father, you know, doing stuff to her, and you know, we signed up to be, you know, rock stars. We didn't sign up to, you know,
to be role models or
it was totally unexpected to us, but you know, we take them as they come, and we genuinely reply, and we like to put in, if they're feeling down, like we put in the Walk in My Shoes, you know, the link, and, you know, talk to these people, they can help and all. But it was a really big eye-opener for us to see all this stuff going on.
Because we were talking before the show, Alison, about, you know, I've been in my bonnet about social networking becoming the anti-social network, because it can be a very cruel place to be. And a very difficult place to be because of the pressure. And you're as a model, a very much image-based place. Yeah. And I'd be particularly concerned about kids and being online and what they have to look like and all the pressures that go with it. That's got to be dealt with, doesn't it?
Well, social media is huge because it's faceless. You know, there's an awful lot of bullying that goes on. There's an awful lot of pressure, and there's no one on the other end. I think when you see someone, you know, face to face, and you're saying something to them, you know, you're not as brave, and you do see an awful lot of people who struggle. I think it's a really difficult time to be a young person in general. I think there's so much pressure on the kids. I think, you know, when we were talking in St. Pat's the other day, we were talking to some of the young boys and girls that were in there. It's not boys and girls, like 16, they're teenagers. Yeah. But you know, I said, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do when I was leaving school. And the minute then I got into modelling, all anybody ever said to me was, what are you going to do when you finish modelling? I mean, modelling's going to end in 2 years. I mean, I was 18 at the time. I'm still modelling, you know.
So more pressure, yeah, exactly.
And it was just this constant pressure all the time. I didn't, you know, I panicked, and I did so many different courses at night. And you do panic. And I think young kids need to just, you know, we spend so much of our time worrying about what we did in the past, and then we spend so much of our time worrying about the future, and very little time just being and being present, and then so much pressure on trying to be happy. And happiness is, is something that, in my opinion, is fleeting, and I think it's a very misused word, because I think what we should be kind of looking for is contentment. And contentment is just being okay with yourself. It's like, it's okay not to feel okay all the time. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be able to speak to your family. I couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not be able to speak to your friends. And that's why I always say, pick up a phone. That person is non-judgmental. There's no face at the end. They're going to listen to you, and they're probably going to offer some really good advice.
Which is what you need. You see the social networking situation too, for better or for worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, just browsing on Facebook with the band, there's a lot of followers on there. You can see what kids are posting, and again, it's sad to see that they're turning to a faceless computer screen to express how they feel.
Yeah.
When there's, I'm sure they have loving family, in the other room or next to them.
Yeah.
That they could talk to, or ring the phone, call up someone.
Okay, in slightly happier news, by the way, you had good news with the band today on the album.
Yes.
Tell us, because we're going to hear you singing now in a second, so what happened today?
It went to #1 on iTunes.
Oh, well, congratulations. That's good. Well done. That's great. That's not bad. And we have another #1 superstar coming up in a second with Imelda May. How's your album going?
We've been working to get it finished this summer, which is what we're planning to do, and hopefully have something out by the end of the year. That's our plan.
So have it done in the can by August and then out for September, October, thereabouts.
That sort of thing.
How are you feeling about it?
Really, really good. I think it's our 13th record. We want to make the songs really count, and they're getting better all the time.
Good on you. And you were married recently to Mariana. Congratulations.
I'm married to the lovely Mariana,
and she's with us tonight in the audience.
She is here
very,
tonight.
very well. So, has that settled you? Has that earthed you at all?
Yeah. I mean, if I'd known it would be this great and this easy, I'd have done it years ago. But I guess I didn't know Mariana then.
Yeah. And how are you these days?
I'm pretty settled. She kind of encourages me to get out the house and kind of just be a bit riskier than I used to be, and I'm up for that.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's great to see you all coming in and delivering the message. It's the St. Patrick's Support and Information Line. We've put details on screen. We're going to put it up right now. And there is someone, as we were saying, at the end of the phone there, right up until midnight tonight. So it's very important, if you're watching tonight, to know that, as our friends have been saying, simply picking up the phone, there is somebody there and they care. So get busy on that phone if you need to, and all information on walkinmyshoes.ie. Ned, why don't you go and earn a crust there? Let's look at you do what you do best. Ned and his fellow bandmates felt so strongly about this subject, actually, that they gave their song Feel It In Your Soul to the campaign as the official song. So they're going to perform it now. Would you welcome, please, O or B, ladies and gentlemen?